Hi, I'm Allie Hamilton, and I'm so happy to welcome you to the Come As You Are podcast. Every week, we'll be talking about some aspect of healing, usually around childhood wounds and complicated familial relationships. The topics will always coincide with my personal essay of the week, and this will be a place where we can take a deep dive together. I'm so thrilled you've joined me and delighted for you to always come as you are. Hi there. Hi there. Welcome to our talk. Today, the topic is I never promised you a rose garden, although I titled the essay Mamaw My Ass. I was writing about memory. That's what I started writing about this week because I think it's so interesting the way the brain works and the way memory works, the way, things can happen from way, way back. And I think you get to a certain age, and for me, for example, like I'm 54, it's rare that I will remember something from my childhood that I've never remembered before. And that happened to me not too long ago. I was watching Hunting Wives, which I was saying in the essay is like good trash. Like it's really good, well done, well acted, good, hot fun. And when you are dealing with trying to survive the erosion of democracy, sometimes, a little escapism here and there is a coping mechanism. And yeah, so I was watching that. And at the end of one of the episodes, this song came on. Rufus is in the studio with me today, so you may hear some dog activity in the background. A song came on, and the song was I Never Promised You a Rose Garden. And all of a sudden, I started having this memory of like, wait a minute, isn't there a film of the same name, and didn't I see it like back when I was a kid? And I just started getting these flashes, and they were disturbing flashes, like not the kind of film that a child should see. I kind of remembered the girl, the protagonist in the film, was like a teenager or young girl, and that she was deeply unhappy, unwell, that she had tried to hurt herself in the most profound way possible, that, if I was remembering correctly, she had ended up in an institution. I just remembered all of these things. So I grabbed my phone and Googled, as you do. And sure enough, film pops up 1977, which I would have been 6. And I just was like, wow. I remembered my dad and stepmom taking me to see this film. And they used to take me to see that kind of film a lot. They liked indies, art films, and they would often take me. And my mom, I think there was this feeling in the 70s, Gen X, just this parenting sort of philosophy that if your kids were around while you were watching something that was like deeply upsetting but very adult, it would go over their heads. They just wouldn't you didn't really have to worry about that because it was just not even, it would go over their heads. And I really do think that was kind of like this parenting philosophy, because so many of my friends saw films or read books or just things that none of us should have seen at the ages that we were. And it made me think about there was another film that I saw. I was older. I was 11, called Brainwaves. And I saw that one with my mother. And that was about it was about this woman who had been in a coma, and she receives a brain transplant from another woman who's recently deceased. And she wakes up out of the coma and everything's great. And then she starts having memories of this woman's last day. And it turns out this woman was murdered, and she's getting flashes of what happened to her. This is very awful, story. So like, this is not going to be an episode to be listening to, like, if you have small kids around. Just like mute me or whatever, like turn the volume, just listen to it later. But basically, because I don't need to, like, I was traumatized watching this thing at 11. I don't need to be traumatizing anybody else's children. What happens is this intruder comes in, this woman is in the tub, and he says to her, "Don't worry, I'm not going to touch you. I promise you, I'm not going to touch you." And she's, of course, like panicking. And he ends up dropping either her hairdryer or her toaster. I cannot remember. I will not go back and watch this film again, so I'll never know. Into the tub. And of course, she dies because of electrocution. But yeah, so I saw that at 11 and, clearly went into my head, did not go over my head. And to this day, I am always really concerned about where is the outlet in the bathroom and just keeping water away from outlet. It's like I'm paranoid to this day about that stuff. So that whole idea of, the things that we are exposed to as children and the way that stuff goes, not only stays with you, but sometimes it stays with you and you might not even remember until something in the present, might be a smell, like the olfactory stuff. Like sometimes you're walking down the street and you go by a store and some smell on the air just like brings a memory flooding back to you, that kind of thing. But it got my wheels spinning. And I love the way, as much as that, those memories are, those are like obviously not like the happiest memories, but long-term memory is mostly stored in the cerebral cortex, and your hippocampus is involved. I mean, they've been studying the brain and the way memory is stored for a long time. And I had started to write about that too, short-term memory. And there's this guy, George Miller, who wrote a paper in 1956 called The Magical Number 7 plus or minus 2. And he was talking about short-term memory and how people can really only, this was his thought at the time, people can only learn new information, like small amounts of new information, but they can increase the amount of information they can take in if they sort of consolidate it into units of information or chunks. So like, for example, you could learn someone's phone number if you thought of the 7 digits as one unit, as one chunk of information. Anyway, I was going to do a whole thing about memory and short-term memory and long-term memory, but as it turned out, I was writing about all of that. Then the Telegram, group chat of the young Republicans came out on Tuesday, and I I really was just like, I can't believe what I'm looking at, although I can believe it. I was more surprised by people's shock than anything else, because that's what started to kind of move around in my mind, is like, there really is no, as horrifying as group this group chat is. It is the most, if you haven't looked at it, it doesn't get worse than this. It is the most racist, homophobic, anti-Semitic, misogynistic. It does not get worse than this. But I was not surprised. And these are grown people in this group chat. These are not kids. This is not a bunch of college kids. These are 24 to 35-year-old people. The youngest people in the chat are like 24. And some of them are 35. Some of them are older than that. One of them is a state senator. These are not kids. These are grown adults in this group chat. And it was leaders of the Young Republicans in New York, Vermont, I think Arizona. Trying to think, there's one other place. And maybe it'll come back to me. But, 2,900 pages of Telegram chats between these people, leaders of these chapters across the country of Young Republicans. The Young Republicans are the oldest youth political group. And, we say youth, it means maybe they enter when they're like, in college or whatever, but they stay in it. It's not like it, and they're trying to, that's the whole point of this group, is to develop leadership of the next generation. So that's how you end up with people who are, 24, 25, 27, 35 in this chat. This is the next generation of people that are going to take over, that are going to be the next leaders in the Republican Party. And so am I shocked that they're saying horrifying things like, I love Hitler in this group chat, or rape is so epic, or, saying horrific things about Black people? No, I'm not at all surprised, because that's the stuff that trickles down, the economy, like billionaires and money, that stuff doesn't trickle down. That stays right at the top. But the hatred, the bigotry, all that stuff, that trickles down. And so when you have, for example, this president during the election cycle running for office again, saying things like legal Haitian immigrants in Springfield are eating the cats and eating the dogs, and people still vote for him. Yeah, this is what you get. When you have the other person on the ticket, J.D. Vance, saying things like the problem in this country is just all the childless cat ladies. And if people want affordable childcare, then they should have their mothers-in-law move in, because what else would a postmenopausal woman be doing with her life? Yes, this is what you get. When you have the man running to be president again during the election cycle, questioning the race of his opponent, calling that into question, saying like, suddenly she's becoming Black. Like, yeah, this is what you get. This is exactly what you get. It's no surprise. That doesn't make it any less vile and horrendous. So it just got my wheels spinning about all the things that influence us as we are developing, and the ways in which, we have agency. Like when you're a kid, you don't. You have a family of origin and you have a culture that you are exposed to. And I'm not just talking about the culture, the big culture. I'm talking about the culture of like your school, right? Or your town or your city, like wherever you grew up. There's like the culture that you were first exposed to. And then those things are certainly going to shape you. You're going to be taught things, and you don't have any reason to question that stuff when you're a kid. The people in your life when you are small, they're like godlike creatures, whether we're talking, if it's your biological parents who raised you or not, whomever those people were that were big and that made sure you had food and shelter, those people are, they were godlike creatures. And as you get older and you go out in the world, hopefully then you have an opportunity as you're exposed to more things and you learn more things and you see how other people live and what other people think, and you read, and you start to understand and you study, maybe you study history, like you start to put things in a bigger context, then hopefully you question some of the, you just figure out, are these things that I was taught, do they make sense? Are they true? Do they hold up now that I'm out in the world or not? Are there things that I need to rethink, reassess, completely abandon? And it's like you have agency. So I was talking about the soil that we grow in, like where we're rooted originally, and the way that our sort of like our tree grows, but we're not trees, right? Like I'm not a tree, you're not, we're human beings. We can pick our roots up and go somewhere else. That whole saying of like the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Sometimes that's a compliment and you're like, oh, that feels good when people say that. And sometimes it's not. And if it's not a compliment, you're not an apple actually. So you can get up and move away if you need to, or just, so those were all the things kind of on my mind as I was writing. And I ended up editing a lot because, sometimes for me, I was like, I would love to just take a break this week and write about memory and the mind and all of that, and maybe not write about all the stuff that's going on. But then these things happen that I feel, I don't know how to be a writer and not write about things like this when they happen, because they feel so, it feels, wrong not to address things that are so painful, for people. Like, to not call this out and to not say it's not okay for people to be speaking that way about anyone. And if this is the up and coming, the way these people have been described. Okay, so the chat is leaked and there are all of these horrific messages. And there were some people in the Republican Party who denounced it right away, but not the vice president. He gets out there and he says, this is a bunch of, pearl clutching, stuff going on here. There's a bunch of kids in this group chat, and, kids say dumb things and make dumb jokes, dumb, edgy jokes. And, I'm not going to be clutching my pearls here. He said, first of all, he's calling this group of people kids. They're not kids. They're grown-ups. They're full adults. And it's very interesting that this administration wants to have 14-year-olds in Washington, D.C. tried as adults, but then you got a bunch of like 24 to 35-year-olds in a group chat, and those people are kids. And girls who are like 12, 14, 16, those are young women. But these people in this chat, mostly dudes and one woman, those are kids, even though they're not. That's extremely telling. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you should go look at these texts because they're disgusting. And he is calling these people promising young men, promising young Republican leaders who are coming up and talking about how their lives should not be ruined because of these leaked conversations. If this is what he thinks of as promising leadership that is coming up in the Republican Party needs to seriously rethink what is going on. Because go look at the texts if you don't know what I'm talking about. I can't even repeat a lot of the things that were said because it's so offensive. The worst racial slurs you can possibly imagine. Yeah, I'm not even going to repeat the things that were said, but it doesn't get worse. And if that is the quality of like what he considers promising leadership that's coming up, also terrifying. Like it's just all horrifying, but unsurprising because this is what is happening from the top down. This is what you get when you have the president of the United States who is an adjudicated rapist, and you say that, and the people who support him scream, witch hunt. It's not true. It's a witch hunt. Like, okay, really? How many women need to come forward for you and accuse this man of sexual assault before you believe? I'm just wondering, how many does it take before you're like, oh yeah, that's too many? This is the problem, like you get to a point where, this week there was somewhere, I don't even remember where it was now, a mashup, like a reel of the president, he was talking about Caroline Leavitt's lips again and how they're like, they move like a machine gun, whatever that simile is that he's obsessed with. The second time he said it, talking about the prime minister of Italy and calling her, like a beautiful young woman in a work environment on the world stage. Completely inappropriate. And any CEO here in the United States, if they did that in a work environment, they'd be done. Which he said. He's like, you can't say this in the United States or your political career would be over, with like an eye roll and a wink. And then there was another clip of him refusing. There was a reporter asking him a question, and he refused to answer the question, but he called her darling and said she was very attractive, and then turned to the vice president and said, she's attractive. And he nodded and laughed. And like the guy next to him was also like laughing, boys club. And so I just said, I commented, and I usually don't even bother commenting under stuff like this, but I commented underneath this thing. I just said, it's a pattern of behavior. It's like, it's nothing new. It's a lifelong pattern of behavior. He doesn't respect women. Like, there's nothing new here. And, the only women who survive in his inner circle are the ones who are willing to allow him to objectify them, including his daughter. And a bunch of men started commenting back to my comment saying, these are just compliments. And if these women aren't bothered, why are you? like spare me with the victimhood. um like boys will be boys, it's just locker room talk, don't be so sensitive, etc. That whole thing. I didn't even bother like responding. Nothing wrong with this. He just called her beautiful. She doesn't mind. Who wouldn't want to be called beautiful? Well, women in work environments, that's who. Women who, like would like to be acknowledged for their accomplishments and not reduced to what they look like. That's who. But I didn't bother responding to these men. But then a woman shows up and she says, spare me with the fake outage, which I'm sure she meant to say fake outrage. Don't worry. I'm sure someday someone will call you beautiful too. So I was like, it is so wild to me when women are defending this kind of man, against other women. It's amazing, right? Like the men showing up, I'm like, whatever, okay, thanks for showing yourselves, got it. But a woman, right? Like, and it happens a lot. It's not unusual. But I just was, I said to her, I said, first of all, I'm not outraged. I was like, I said, I assume you mean outraged and not outage. I'm not outraged. I was like, if I got outraged every time this president did something inappropriate, I would be like dead and buried long ago. I'm not. I was like, I just, I said, I find it really sad and astounding, though, that you are like defending this man who proudly bragged that he grabs women by the pussy and got Ghislaine Maxwell moved to a minimum security prison when she should be behind bars, along with all the men who hurt little girls. You're going to defend him and be obnoxious to me, a person who you probably have a lot more in common with. I was like, men like him have been harassing me for my entire life. It's like, I was born and raised in New York City. It happened on the streets of New York since I'm 12 years old. Men like him and other kinds of men, men on the street, like men in stairwells, men on buses, men on subways, men who should have been looking out for me, teachers. I had good teachers too, but I had things happen in academic settings. I had things happen in work settings. I continue to have things happen in work settings, online, any place at all that I have ever attempted to exist as a full human being. There are always men right there trying to diminish me, trying to make me feel that my value is in how I look. That's my value in what I look like. And I, that's nothing new. But I don't accept that. And I don't put up with that. I'm a grown woman and I know who I am, but that's hard-won wisdom. That was not like always the case. It took me a very long time to not believe that, because society tells you that too. Society will tell you as a girl and a young woman and a woman, that your value is so much of it is based in how you look, and that you're not the judge of that. It's the male gaze. It's, we're in a patriarchal system. And if you haven't understood that yet, I really don't know what to tell you. But that's what we're dealing with here. And that's who's running this government right now. That kind of man and the women who carry water for them. Women like the woman telling me, don't worry, like maybe someday someone will call you beautiful too. Lady, please, it's so sad to me that there are still women not seeing this kind of man clearly. That part is still surprising to me. The group text, completely unsurprising to me because this is what you get. And so I was writing about the things that, that influence us and the things that we allow to influence us. And we do have choice. I have a really close friend who has gone in a direction I never would have imagined. A lot of people have a one issue thing, right? There's like a single issue that they are really passionate about. And sometimes, and we've seen this a lot, sort of like since the pandemic forward, people became very impassioned about different things. Don't tell me I have to get a vaccination. I don't want to do that. And it's so interesting because it's like the same people who felt that way are the same people voting for an administration that is absolutely trying to regulate women and what they can and can't do with their own. There's no bodily autonomy. It's the same people who have voted and are continuing to support an administration that has, ICE agents everywhere, masked, unidentified, grabbing people, no due process, just throwing them into unmarked vans. That's okay with them. Masked ICE agents, not identified, pepper spraying peaceful protesters in the face, shooting them in the head with, pepper bullets, totally silent. Masked, unidentified ICE agents rappelling out of helicopters, breaking down doors, grabbing children, U.S. citizens, throwing them into the backs of U-Hauls, zip tied together. That's okay. It's just, but it's these people that had like one issue that was really upsetting to them that kind of like took the exit ramp with that one issue and then ended up in this algorithm where now they're gone. And that algorithm, certainly, like, social media is not helping us in this way. We all know this, right? Like, I like what I like. I'm a liberal-minded person. I'm certainly not hiding that. I am a liberal-minded person. And, I talk about this almost every week. And I'm very happy to have that conversation. There are people who believe in small government, and everybody's entitled to believe whatever they want to believe. But when you have a government and they're saying small government, but then the billionaires are all getting like even more billions while everyone else is barely making it, that's not small government. That's theft. That's oligarchy. That's not small government, friends. That's a sham, is what it is, and a scam. That's not what we're seeing here. This is Project 2025. I know, I read it. I read 920 pages of it. So I'm not confused about what it is or what we're living through. This is it. It was closing as many government agencies as possible and privatizing everything. And for anyone who couldn't afford to pay for services, too bad for you. Good luck. We're seeing it. There's a reason that you understand this shutdown is going on. And there's a reason that, Mike Johnson sent Republicans home. They're not negotiating. What they are doing right now is withholding $25 billion of federal funds that were appropriated by Congress for projects in Democrat-led states and cities in an effort to extort Democrat senators to sign another clean CR. They're like not going to negotiate about affordable health care for American citizens. And when I say that, I mean Republicans and independents and all of us, right? Like everybody. The people who are going to be hit the hardest if they don't extend the Affordable Care Act subsidies, the states that are going to be hit hardest by that loss are red states. It's like you're trying to help people who are insulting you. Literally, that's what it feels like for someone like me. I'm saying these things and I'm trying to get the word out. And the people who are actually going to be harmed the most are like screaming expletives at me. It's amazing. Not in a good way. And Medicaid, the cuts to Medicaid, horrendous for people who are barely making it. You should check your energy bill because it probably went up. Your utility bill, mine did. Mine just skyrocketed because this president does not believe in green energy. And so solar and wind, he's taken that out of the grid. He's cut back on those sources of energy that we were using, which we should because they're free, and has increased our reliance on fossil fuels because that makes more money for him and his cronies. These people are getting richer by the day, and we are all getting screwed. That's what's happening, but people are so entrenched, and they don't want to be wrong. They don't want to be wrong. And I get it. It's really, really hard to be this stuck in and have to then be like, oh shoot, I might have been wrong about this. Maybe these people are not looking out for me, not looking out for the American people. Maybe they're not good people. Yikes. Like that's rough. I get it. But, I also understand the algorithm does what it does. So it's showing all this positive stuff. I see what's being said. I see the information that's being fed to people who did not vote the way that I did and don't think the way that I do. They're talking about oh, this is a hate America, rally on Saturday. This is not a hate America rally. And I love my country. I'm heartbroken. I'm heartbroken because I love my country and I love the Constitution and I value democracy and, and I'm clear-eyed about it. We had we had things to, it has been a long road and we have always had work to do. It's been a slow climb, but I had faith that we were going to continue that slow climb and we were going to continue to, be better and better. And now I don't have that faith at all. We are go look at these texts. Go look at the group chat if you have any doubt about what is going on here. It's not pretty. And, this past week, Pete Hegseth made a demand that any journalists who were going to cover the Pentagon, anything they wrote, he had to approve before it went out. Okay. That's state-run media. And every single news organization that had offices in the Pentagon, they refused to sign, except one, far, far, far right. Or I can't remember the name of it now. But Newsmax said no. Fox News said no. Everyone said no except one organization. What does that tell you? Fox News said no. Newsmax said no. Nobody would sign it because that's not a free press anymore. That is state-run media. That's North Korea. That's insane. And we don't want that here. That's not democracy. Okay? I don't know. I don't know how to get this across to people. Even the founding fathers were like, do not touch the free press. Ever. Ever. Congress shall pass no law that limits the press. It's like, journalists are supposed to, when you have a country that asks its citizens to send their children off to war to defend the country, right? For whatever reason, you have to have a free press. So the press can go and report and say, this is what's going on. This is what I see on the ground. This is what, I'm here at the Pentagon, or I'm here, like talking to this person. I'm having this, I'm doing this interview. This is what I'm finding out. You want that. You want the transparency so that you understand as a country, like, this is what's happening. When you start to have a Secretary of Defense, and I am not going to call that pissant, unqualified, man who should get help with his alcoholism, the Secretary of War, because it's pathetic, telling the press that they need his permission before they can print their stories, we are in, we're in an authoritarian regime is where we are. And the press said no. And everyone should celebrate that the press said no. That's a good thing that the press said no to that. This is not a Hate America rally on Saturday. This is Save America rally on Saturday. This is people who are like, good. I am really glad the press said no to that and they left the building. They can still cover the Pentagon now. They're just not going to do it from that building. They're not going to sign Pete Hegseth's permission slip before they print, the news, nor should they. These people are, the power grabs are unbelievable. The coercive control that is happening right now is unlike anything we've ever seen. And instead of getting to work for the American people and trying to negotiate, which is normally what happens during a shutdown. During a shutdown, usually you have everyone, senators in there, battling it out. Like, okay, what do you need in order for us to like reopen? And they're not doing that. They're like, no, okay, Democrats, fine. We're going to stick it to you harder. You're not going to get this money. We're going to impound these funds, unconstitutional, from these Democrat-run states and cities and twist the knife and make your people, it's American people. It's not how this works. The president is supposed to be the president of the entire country, but that's not what they're doing. Even, Mike Johnson's talking about the Democrats and their, whatever, like Antifa, anti-fascist. Yeah. As should everyone be anti-fascist. Like, yes, you don't want fascism, friends. That's not going to be fun, but they seem to want it. That's what happens when you've got state-run media and you have, ICE agents who don't even identify themselves, masked, throwing people into the backs of vans and attacking United States citizens for exercising their First Amendment rights. This is not good. You don't want that. If you think you want that, then you don't love America. You don't love democracy. Gretchen Whitmer, you should like go listen to this. There is a message. Some woman called this week, I think, and you know how you can call and like you'll get someone answering the phone on the team there, and they record all those calls that come in, as they should, because you know sometimes somebody calls in and you have to record those calls on both sides. They always do that. And this woman, she sounds like, you know, someone's grandmother, like, but she started off, I mean, I was like, I didn't know if I should laugh or cry listening to this. It devolved into, she's just been watching Fox News, clearly. This woman is home and she's just watching this propaganda 24/7, and she hates Democrats, and was screaming. Like, I was almost like, someone should call an ambulance. She's going to have a stroke or a heart attack. Like, she has lost it. And the hateful speech, the things this woman was saying were so violent and vile. And, you know, it's just someone's grandmother. You're like, wow, you know, this is just not it. And the things that I want, you know, like I do want affordable healthcare for everyone. Absolutely. This ICE thing, no, definitely not. Does that mean I want open borders and I don't care about crime or rape or, you know, drug, you know, like, of course not. I have children. I don't want that. So it's like, yeah, you know, there's a line here. Obviously, if this administration and this president had done what he said, which was they were going to go after the worst of the worst and the hardened criminals, go for it. You know, go for it. We're going to get rid of the fraud, waste, and abuse. If they had done that at all, you know, that would be one thing. That's not what has happened, not at all. And not only that, they sent an unelected billionaire into the treasury and 6 kids with flash drives who now are social security numbers and all. Forget it. No clue where that stuff is, y'all. Dark web, like whatever, you know, good luck to us all. And none of his supporters, I spoke to some people, you know, I was like, aren't you bothered? No, he's a billionaire. He's you know, he's doing this out of the goodness of his heart. Oh, really? Do you know how much money he has made? This is not out of the goodness of his heart. There's not an altruistic bone in that man's body. You know, and in a reverse situation, that's what I keep coming back to. These people who have voted for this it would not be pretty. It would be January 6th times 9 million. It would be so violent and scary. I don't even know what to say. That is what would be happening in a reverse situation. If we had a Democrat president in office doing these outrageous things and violating the Constitution and trampling over people's constitutional rights, I guarantee you it would be ugly and unhinged, and I don't even, but that wouldn't happen. That wouldn't happen. So anyway, I don't know. I think you really should look at the group texts if you haven't, and then check out what the vice president is saying about that, because this man's second in line to the presidency of the United States of America. And he was saying that he is going to teach his sons not to put anything like that on the internet because, you never know if this is his language, some scumbag is going to leak that in order to try to ruin you or your family. Not that he's going to teach his sons to be decent human beings, not, racist, bigoted, misogynistic, horrible human beings who would never say something like that in the first place. No, that's not what he's focused on. He's going to teach his sons not to put things like that in a group chat and leave themselves vulnerable to a quote unquote scumbag who might then try to expose them. That's what he's going to spend his time teaching his sons. How to hide your bigotry. Don't expose yourself. These are not good people. I don't know what else, people need to see in order to figure that out. But I'm not without hope because of things like the journalists leaving and saying, no, we're not going to do that. Because I expect there are going to be a lot of people showing up on Saturday, hopefully peacefully. I am worried for people. I do think they're just looking for an excuse. I see the language, even like I said, Mike Johnson is using, and it's dangerous, to be calling Democrats the things that he is calling them, liberal-minded people. It's really scary. And if you're a good person, you should be worried for your country people, because in a better situation, in a less charged situation, my focus would be on making the liberal-minded party better. That's where I would be focused. I'd be trying to improve the liberal policies, that's where I would be focused. I don't even have time for that because I had to pay my federal taxes to an administration that calls me horrible names. I'm not a horrible person. I just want healthcare for people, and I want clean air and clean water, and I don't want to wake up and worry about my neighbors every day, and I don't want to worry about my teenage daughter in this mess or my son. I just like to be able to go to the grocery store and buy some groceries and not be worried all the time. That would be terrific. That's all. I'm not looking for anything crazy. And I would like our cities to be safe, obviously. And I'd like everybody to be happy and good. I don't want anyone telling women what they can do with their bodies. I trust women. I don't want men like this making laws about things. This is not the level of person I want running our government, regardless of party. These people are unfit. So this is not it. But it's not even about, the things that I want are just so basic. The fact that anybody would have a hard time with it is weird, frankly. It's just strange. And, I don't know. I don't know what else I can say, but there's so much hype and garbage being fed to people about, about what is going on, that it's hard to know how we're going to get through this. But I'm hoping that people will start to understand. I don't know what more you need to see. Republicans are not going to work. They're not negotiating. Democrats signed a clean CR in March. Where is the Republican plan for affordable health care? Why don't you just ask yourself that question? What's supposed to happen January 1st? Where's the plan? Just ask that question, and look at the group text and then ask yourself if the things the vice president said in response are okay with you. Those would be good questions to ask yourself. Anyway, memory, super cool. Songs, the way a song or a smell can trigger something from when you were 6 years old that you hadn't even thought about in over 40 years. It's crazy and wild. And I'd much rather be talking about things like that. I'd much rather be talking to you about my dog or, anything, the way sunflowers follow the sun across the sky. So many other things I'd rather be be talking to you about than all this stuff. But while people are suffering, I can't, people are suffering and hurting right now. And it's a choice to look away from that. It's a choice to look away from that. It's a choice to surround yourself with people who are pretending it's okay. It's not okay. It's not a party thing. It's a human being thing. It's not okay. Full stop. Not okay. Go look at those group texts. Ask yourself if that's okay with you. Something's going wrong for you. Really. Like, I'm worried about you. If those texts are okay with you and the vice president's response is okay with you, I am worried for you. Genuinely. Like, you're not okay. We got to do better than this, friends. We got to find a way to come back together, and get back on track here. Because otherwise, if you allow these people, if you continue to throw your loyalty behind people like this, go look at those group texts. That is the country you're going to have. And you better make sure that's what you want. You better be very, very sure that's what you want, because it is not pretty. Okay. I love y'all. I am hopeful that we can get back to, just breathing and sticking our feet in the grass and, swimming in the ocean and looking at the night sky and laughing together and reading poems and making art, and even if it's not good, just whatever, just being human beings here on planet Earth, and not being bogged down with all this stuff these awful people are just throwing at us, all the time. This is not it. This is not the way life needs to be. Please take care of yourselves. Those of you who feel the way that I do and are hurting, please have compassion for yourself. Take care of yourself. Take breaks from all this madness. Get outside. Get on your mat if you're a yoga person. Breathe deeply. If you don't have a meditation practice, it's such a good time to develop a meditation practice. You should do 10 minutes a day would be life-changing. Take care of your nervous system and your physical well-being, because all this stuff is really hard and you cannot help anyone if you fall apart. Having said that, it's okay to fall apart sometimes. It really is. And none of this is easy. So if you're struggling, it just means that you're paying attention and you're sane and you care. And that's beautiful. We need more of that. And you're also not alone. So you know where to find me if you need support. And I'm sending you a lot of love.